New York City, a jungle of concrete and steel, now turned into an oven. Summer had claimed the city like a vengeful god. And the sun? The sun wasn't just shining, it was attacking. Every reflective surface turned into a weapon. People walked the streets, squinting, wincing like they'd been slapped across the face. The sidewalks smelled like boiling garbage because, well, those boiling garbage. The vents from a subway coughed out hot, stale air like an old man wheezing his last breath. On fire escapes, in the parks, on every corner, people simmered in their own sweat, stuck in a city-wide slow roast. And when things get this hot, the city gets cruel. Tempers flare, crimes spike, and suddenly, every degree on the thermometer feels like one more reason to lose control. Robberies, assaults, murders. In this heat wave, crime was just another symptom. But this was something else entirely. This wasn't a quick bullet to the head or a junkie sticking a knife in your gut for a few bucks. This killing had patience, time, even a twisted kind of artistry. While most murders end in a flash of panic and regret, this one felt deliberate, almost like the killer took pride in it. And right there, standing over the aftermath, Detective La Pearl crunched on a piece of ice, the only thing keeping her from boiling over like the rest of the city. At the scene, a tech guy snaps a photo of the horror hanging in front of him. He turns to Detective La Pearl, cool as ever behind her shades, and asks, "You ever seen anything like this, Detective?" La Pearl, crunching another piece of ice like she's chewing through the madness, just shrugs and says, "No, the building was a dump, condemned a year ago, now a home for junkies and squatters. Maybe it was drug-related, a stash gone wrong, or some neighborhood vigilante thinking he could clean up the streets with a little extra enthusiasm. But La Pearl knows better. You're thinking logically," she says, eyeing the skinned corpses hanging like grotesque trophies. And skinning someone? Skinning defies logic. Detective La Pearl keeps cool under the burning weight of the scene, quite literally, crunching another ice cube as she sizes it all up. "This wasn't a robbery," she says, her voice calm but heavy. But something was stolen. She steps closer to the grotesque bodies, adjusting her sunglasses as she examines the horrors on display. "Everybody's missing a piece," she adds. "A jaw, a rib, a finger." Each word lands like a slow, deliberate punch, while the bodies swing slightly in the stagnant air. Whatever happened here, it wasn't fast, and it sure as hell wasn't clean. One of the techs dares to ask, "What do you think that means?" La Pearl doesn't flinch. "I wish I knew," she mutters, tossing another ice cube into her mouth. "But one thing's for sure. Whoever did this Skinner, is some kind of sick-ass trophy hunter. And if you know anything about trophy hunters in the Marvel Universe, you already feel the chill creeping up your spine." As Detective La Pearl scours the scene, she notices something off. "And hey, what were you doing talking to the neighbors?" "That's my job," she snaps without even turning around. Silence. She frowns, leaning into the doorway. "Asked you a..." She pauses mid-sentence, confusion sinking in. "Question." That's when two other investigators walk in, a little out of breath. "Sorry we're late," they say. "Stuck in traffic." As usual, La Pearl stiffens. "If you just got here, then who the hell was I talking to?" Meanwhile, already half a dozen blocks away, Peter Parker, now suited up as Spider-Man, soars above the smothering streets, the city glowing gold under the merciless sun. He webs through the air, grabbing his camera gear and calling Jameson. "Mr. Jameson?" "It's Peter," he says, voice steady but mind racing. Because what Peter just saw wasn't normal. And in New York City, that's saying something. Spider-Man swings high above the steaming skyline, the sun burning the streets into a golden haze below. His web sliced the thick summer air with sharp, practiced thwips. "I've got something," Peter says into his earpiece, voice low, urgent. "Something bad. Something way beyond your average mugger, purse snatcher, or second-rate supervillain with a grudge." As he cuts through the oven-hot wind, Peter knows two things for sure. One, whatever did this wasn't human. And two, it's just getting started. Meanwhile, back at the Bugle, Jonah Jameson is melting down harder than the pavement outside. "The last time you promised me something, Parker," Jameson barks into the phone, sweat dripping from his forehead. It was a freaking puppy parade in Queens. Peter, swinging between buildings, tries to keep his cool. "I've got something better this time, Mr. Jameson." But Jameson isn't listening. "I don't want good news. I want bad news. Fear gets clicks. Clicks get ad revenue." The old man is practically combusting at his desk. "You think it's hot outside? It's hotter in here." This paper's 5 canceled subscriptions away from shutting down. Peter dodges pigeons, antennas, and fire escapes as he weaves through the city. "How about mass murder?" he throws back casually. That gets Jameson's attention. "You got photos? You better have photos." Peter smiles under the mask. "I'll be there in 5 minutes. Traffic's light, the way I'm going." Yeah, famous last words. Parker, Spider-Man, still swinging through the city, feels that all too familiar shift in plans creeping in. "Actually, make that 20 minutes, he mutters. Because right in front of him, bursting out the doors of a bank, comes a group of masked thugs, guns blazing, sacks of cash in hand. Bullets fly. Panic spills into the streets. "Something just came up," Peter says over the phone, keeping his cool even as the situation spirals. The gang, their bug-eyed masks glinting in the heat, scream at the driver. "Go, go, go." The getaway van screeches through the boiling streets, tires struggling against asphalt that's practically melting. And Spider-Man? He already knows. There won't be an exclusive mass murder headline for the Daily Bugle. Not yet. First, he's got a few trigger-happy bugs to squash. Spider-Man thought he'd be clever. Swing ahead, cut the bad guys off at the next block. Simple, right? Wrong. Because what he didn't see coming was an open fire hydrant blasting water like a geyser across the street. Kids laughing, dogs barking, the whole street turned into a full-on summertime water park. Great for the kids. Bad news for the guy chasing down armed bank robbers. And right now, there's a van barreling straight through the chaos, and Spider-Man has a split second to choose between stopping the crooks or saving a bunch of happy, oblivious kids. And Spider-Man? He always saves the kids. Just like that, the van blazes past, splashing through the water and leaving Spider-Man with about half a second to act. No hesitation, no second-guessing. Webs shoot out, snagging every kid and even the dog, yanking them all safely out of the way, just before the van tears through like a runaway train. Spider-Man swings in low, untangling the little crowd as he jokes. "Hi, kids. Sorry to interrupt the playdate. Crisis averted. But the bad guys? They're already disappearing down an alley. And Spider-Man's got a new problem to chase." Meanwhile, a few blocks away, the van screeches into a dark, abandoned warehouse. The kind of place where the walls have heard every secret and probably screamed them too. Inside, the crooks move fast. Close the door, cut the engine, one of them barks. No honor among thieves. Only the kind of paranoia that comes with splitting blood money. "We split the cash quick," he growls, slamming the heavy sack onto a table. "Then we each go our separate ways. No talking, no calls, no nothing. 2 weeks minimum." But when he looks up, expecting some kind of answer, there's only silence. No backup, no nods of agreement. Just bodies. 3 of them, freshly killed, skinned, torn open like butchered meat. And suddenly, he's very, very alone. The crook, now a twitchy mess, waves his gun into the darkness. "Whoever you are, where the hell are you?" His voice echoes back at him, swallowed by the empty warehouse. "You want a cut of this?" he offers, desperation thick in his voice. "Let's work something out." From the shadows, 2 burning red eyes blink open. No negotiation, no mercy, only death. Before the thug can scream, a massive clawed hand clamps over his face and rips, peeling flesh from bone like it was nothing more than a cheap Halloween mask. The last thing he sees is his own terror reflected in a wall of exposed muscle and blood. The thug scream cuts through the air like a siren, but it's too late. With a snick that echoes off the cold concrete walls, the predator's wrist blade slices clean through flesh and bone. The thug's body jolts once, twice, then crumples like a marionette with its strings cut. Blood paints the floor in a growing, violent pool. The face, still lying there, staring wide-eyed at nothing. The predator watches, emotionless. Under the flickering lights of the abandoned warehouse, the predator admires its prize. In its thermal vision, the stolen human face is a grotesque masterpiece, a trophy of flesh still steaming from a kill. Without hesitation, it stretches the mangled skin over its own monstrous visage, the blood oozing down its fanged mandibles. Almost like a second skin, a mockery of humanity, a message written in blood. The predator isn't just hunting for sport anymore. It's making art. And somewhere out there, swinging between rooftops, Spider-Man still thinks he's dealing with a normal crime spree. Poor Spidey. He's got no idea what he's about to walk into. After making sure the kids and the dog were safe and out of harm's way, Spider-Man swung off with his usual charm. Bye, have fun. Don't get run over by robbers, grumpy taxi drivers, or delivery bikes weighed down with warm salads and leaky burritos. Peter always cracking jokes, even when the city feels like it's boiling over. But the good mood doesn't last. Okay, back to the baddies. He traces the getaway van to a shady warehouse, and the second he lands, that sixth sense of his kicks into overdrive. Something's wrong. Very wrong. As he peers inside, Spider-Man freezes. The sight in front of him steals the words from his mouth. Bodies. Skinned. Again, Peter lifts his phone to his ear, his voice dropping low, serious. Mr. Jameson, what I saw earlier wasn't an isolated incident. This wasn't random. This wasn't human. And for the first time tonight, Spider-Man realizes he's in way over his head. Spider-Man's voice turns grim as he stares up at the horror in front of him. We're dealing with a serial killer. And not just any killer. This was something else entirely. 3 more bodies, skinned and suspended like grotesque trophies, swaying gently in the stale warehouse air. Blood pooled beneath them, painting twisted symbols on the cracked concrete floor. Each victim missing a piece. This wasn't some spree of madness. No, this was a hunt. Spider-Man wasn't chasing a common criminal anymore. The heat wasn't just beating down anymore. It felt alive. A predator in its own right, stalking the city. Every AC unit pushed to the brink, every fan spinning like it was fighting for survival. And the grid? It was hanging by a thread. Meanwhile, inside the Daily Bugle, Peter Parker and Jonah Jameson were locked in the eternal battle of tone versus terror. The article's not terrible, Parker. Jameson growled, sweat soaking through his shirt. But it needs more dirty panic. A you could be next vibe. Peter stood his ground, arms crossed. I disagree. We need people to stay sharp, not paralyzed with fear. Because deep down, Peter knew panic was a predator too. And right when the city needed information the most, the power blew. Jameson exploded, slamming his hands on the desk. Are you kidding me? A power outage. Peter looked out the window, heart sinking. Meanwhile, deep under the city, the subway rumbled along, slicing through the darkness of New York's underbelly. Inside, it was almost peaceful, commuters zoning out, lost in their own little worlds. Among them was Mary Jane Watson, looking effortless as ever, engrossed in a copy of a streetcar named Desire, twirling her pen with a casual grace. But just like everything else in the city that day, that moment of calm wasn't built to last. The train shuddered, and the lights cut out, plunged into darkness, the car filled with a symphony of groans and complaints. Mary Jane just lowered her book, sighed, and muttered, "Seriously? Yeah, seriously." The lights stayed dead, and panic began to simmer in the subway car. Some passengers tried to laugh it off. Others weren't handling it so well. A voice called out through the dark, "Do you think it'll start up again?" Another answered, dry and hopeless, "No, we're going to be trapped down here forever." Classic New York optimism. In the middle of it all, a girl's breathing picked up, sharp, ragged. Her hands clamped around her head as she started rocking back and forth. No, Mary Jane didn't hesitate. She slid over, her voice calm, a little shaky but trying to help. "Hey, I'm MJ. You okay?" The girl gasped. "I get claustrophobic. The heat. The dark. I can't." MJ knelt beside her, flipping on her phone light, pointing it out the window. "It feels tight in here, I know. But look at all that space outside. Focus on that." Not on in here. It was a small moment of kindness. But sometimes, small things are all you have between you and complete panic. Unfortunately for them, something out there was watching. MJ kept her voice light, reassuring. You see? Just focus on what's out there and not in here. The girl nodded, clinging to that thread of calm. Thanks, MJ. I'm trying. Outside the subway car, the tunnel stretched out, empty, endless, but then movement. The girl squinted, leaning closer to the glass. Hey, I think I see somebody out there. MJ followed her gaze, trying to stay upbeat. Yeah, could be somebody with transit. Maybe they're fixing the tracks. But as her words left her lips, something pressed against the window. Something that wasn't fixing anything. A bloody, tattered, skin-wrapped skull. Before MJ could even finish her thought, the glass exploded with a horrific screech. There, pressed against a shattered window, was it? The predator. But this time, it wore a grotesque, human face stretched and stitched over its armor like some monstrous trophy. Its yellow, alien eyes gleamed through the slits of stolen flesh. The subway car filled with screams as passengers scrambled backward, tripping over seats, clawing for space that wasn't there. MJ grabbed the terrified girl, pulling her behind her, shielding her from the nightmare outside. Meanwhile, back at the Daily Bugle, Peter was trying to hold the city together in his own way. The blackout had wiped out the cell towers. No coverage, no Wi-Fi. The modern world had slammed to a stop. Jameson was losing his mind, barking orders about getting the story online fast. Peter just shook his head. No signal, he said, and Con Edison says it could be days before the power's back. Jameson nearly exploded. So what were we supposed to do? Sit here with our thumbs up hour? But Peter had already snapped his fingers, that familiar glint of a plan in his eye. Let's fire up the Jenny. If the network was down, they'd go old school. They dusted off the old printing press. Real paper, real headlines, hand sold on the streets like it was 1945 all over again. And not just to keep the Bugle alive, but because Peter knew the city needed to be warned. As the sun burned down on the city like a giant, merciless furnace, the Daily Bugle hit the streets the old-fashioned way. Papers. Get your papers. Vendors cried out on every corner, waving the special edition above their heads, trying to outshout the honking horns and the rising tension. Over the next few hours, the heat only got worse, inside and outside. People did whatever they could to survive the sweltering nightmare. Cooling off in fountains, lingering in diners, killing time in the thick, sticky air. They wouldn't have even known they were being hunted if it hadn't been for Peter Parker. Jameson himself was out there, practically foaming at the mouth, yelling, "Read all about it. Streets are going to be extra dark tonight because there's a serial killer on the loose." Jameson was out there doing what he did best, turning panic into profit. How much for a paper? $10. Jameson barked back without missing a beat. $10? The man gasped. Jameson, ever the negotiator, grumbled, "Okay, $5. Gimme a $5." He wasn't just selling papers. He was selling survival, screaming into the crowd. Your loved ones may die before the night is out. Unless you read the Daily Bugle. Read about the Skinner. But before he could make another sale, a firm hand snatched the paper right out of his grip. "Give me that." It was Detective La Pearl, and she wasn't here to buy a newspaper. Detective La Pearl wasn't playing around. "This isn't a library. Give me $20, she snapped, snatching the newspaper from Jameson's hands. Jameson, sweating bullets, muttered, "Photo credit." No luck. La Pearl leaned in, eyes sharp behind her shades. "Peter Parker, there's now a law against disseminating photos of a crime scene without the permission of the victims or the police." Jameson tried to bluster his way out. "Back off. I'm protected by the Fourth Estate." Asterisk. Wrong answer. Flashing her badge, La Pearl laid it out clear. "You want to try me? I want to bring Parker in for questioning. Now, or I'll arrest you." Meanwhile, swinging just a few blocks away, Spider-Man had already gotten the message. And he wasn't sticking around for questions. La Pearl shouted after Jameson, "Where is he?" But Peter Parker was already airborne, web-slinging into the next big nightmare. While the city sweated through the chaos, Spider-Man was swinging toward the only thing that truly mattered to him. Mary Jane. He landed lightly on the fire escape, crawling toward her window. MJ, he called softly. Inside, the apartment was still, too still. MJ, I think I've got a long night ahead of me, Peter said as he stepped in, his voice trying to stay casual. But I wanted to check in and see how your audition went. But the words hung in the heavy, silent air. No answer. And then, from somewhere distant in the subway, a scream tore through the night. MJ. A book. A streetcar named Desire, lying in a pool of blood. A hand, limp and still, barely visible near it. Where are you? Peter whispered, a cold fear creeping up his spine. On the darkened streets, a paper vendor did his best to stay cheerful. Thank you for reading the Bugle, he said, handing out papers. Have a good night. He raised a copy high into the air, calling out, There's a predator on the loose. Don't be among the hunted. Read all about it. But he wasn't alone. From the shadows, a group of thugs watched him. Wonder how much cash he's got, one muttered. They moved in. How about let's unload those pockets, man? One said, pressing a gun against the vendor's head. Terror flashed across the old man's face, but before he could even cry out, a sudden arrow sound split the air. A flash of webbing whipped the thug's gun away, yanking it clean out of his hand and drawing blood. Out of the darkness, a figure emerged. One thug shouted in panic. Smoke him, another barked. But before they could act, the shadow struck, swift and lethal. A sharpened weapon cut through the air with a sickening sound, felling one of the criminals instantly. The figure stood over the fallen body, ominous and cold. You shouldn't be out here, it said, voice low. The last thug stumbled back, terrified. You're not strong enough. Calmly, methodically, the figure withdrew the bloody weapon. This city can be a dangerous place, he said, his voice a growl in the dark. Especially in the dark. And then he stepped from the shadows. Craven the hunter, adorned with the spoils of beasts, muscles coiled like steel, eyes burning with primal fire. But before you run back to your nest, little mouse, and you should run, he growled. The thug trembled at the towering figure before him, clutching a savage spear and a deadly crossbow. What was it you were saying about this predator? The true nightmare had arrived. To be continued. And that's the story, folks. Please, leave your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one. See you next time.